Our ancestors had no casts, no antibiotics, no X-rays. How did a hunter with a shattered femur walk again? Because thousands of years ago someone stayed behind to help him. No hospitals, no painkillers on a shelf. And yet, when scientists dig up ancient skeletons, they keep finding the same strange thing over and over. Bones that broke, bones that healed, bones walking around decades after an injury that should have ended everything. Let's slow down and define what we're actually talking about. A broken bone in prehistory wasn't rare at all. It was basically part of the job description. Imagine you're an ancient human chasing animals bigger than you. Climbing trees, throwing spears, falling off things, getting kicked, getting gored, getting stepped on by heavy prey. Your entire lifestyle is what anthropologists call a super predator strategy, chasing prey that can absolutely destroy you. And things went sideways constantly. Studies show Neanderthal skeletons show injury patterns just like modern rodeo riders. Same kinds of fractures, same body zones, head, neck, ribs, arms, because they wrestled large mammals for a living. Our ancestors' bodies were, in a very real sense, worn down by their own courage over the years. But here's the thing. Scientists read bones like diaries. A fresh break looks nothing like an old healed one. If a person died from the injury, the edges are sharp, clean, unremodeled at the moment of death. If they survived, bone remodeling kicks in. New tissue grows, the fracture line smooths, the shape changes forever. So when researchers pull a skeleton from the ground, they can tell if that person walked away or didn't. And what they keep finding, over and over, is that people walked away. One skeleton rewrote what we knew. His name is Shanidar I, a Neanderthal found in a cave in what's now northern Iraq, with catastrophic injuries. A crushing blow to the left side of his skull, probably blinding him. A withered right arm, essentially useless. Damage to his lower leg. A hearing bone suggests partial deafness. On paper, this man should have died in a ditch. He didn't. He lived for years afterward, possibly decades. His injuries healed, his body adapted. Someone was caring for him. Someone brought him food, kept him warm, tolerated that he could no longer carry his own weight in the tribe. Compassion is older than agriculture, older than writing, older than cities. It's baked into what we are as humans. And Shanidar I isn't a one-off. Similar skeletons keep showing up across the ancient record from many different sites. Old individuals with no teeth who somehow kept eating. Injured hunters who kept getting fed by their people. The dead were buried, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with tools. Our ancestors were softer than we tend to think. But how exactly did they set a broken bone? Let's talk mechanics of ancient medicine and prehistoric first aid. If you break a leg in the woods with nothing around you, what do? Find a straight stick. You find something to bind it. You immobilize the limb. Congratulations, you just invented the splint out of nothing. That's essentially what ancient humans did. Splints of wood, splints of bark, wrapped in animal hide or plant fiber, sometimes packed with mud or clay that hardened into a primitive cast. Prehistoric first aid, older than any hospital. We know this because splinted bones show a specific healing pattern. The bone lines up straighter, the angles cleaner. Left alone, a fracture healed at whatever angle gravity chose. Set and immobilized, it looked almost modern. Archaeologists have even found the splints themselves, preserved in dry caves or bogs, still wrapped around the leg. There's another trick your body already knows, whether you realize it or not. Traction pulls the limb straight. Hold it there, and the muscles stop yanking bone fragments out of alignment. Ancient healers figured this out. Two people, one holding the shoulder, one pulling the ankle. Sometimes body weight, hanging them off a branch. Crude, effective. It worked, because bone remodeling does the real work anyway, if you hold the pieces close. Here's a quiet twist most people never think about. Natural selection didn't just favor the strong, it favored healers. If your body knitted a broken femur back together in 6 weeks, you survived, reproduced, passed on those genes. Over hundreds of thousands of years, humans became remarkably good at healing. We're descended from champions of recovery. Then, archaeologists found something stranger. In 2022, a team in a Borneo cave announced a discovery that stopped people cold. A skeleton of a young person dated around 31,000 years ago with the lower left leg surgically removed. Not chewed off by an animal, not shattered in an accident. Cut, cleanly, just below the knee. And the bone had healed. The kid lived, by some estimates, another 6 to 9 years after the operation. 31,000 years ago in Southeast Asia, someone amputated a young child's leg, and the child actually survived, which implies real anatomy knowledge, knowing exactly where to cut without slicing through a major artery and bleeding out. Plus, pain management, because you simply cannot amputate a screaming, thrashing patient without something dulling the sensation first. Plus, some antiseptic practice, because infection didn't kill this child, which would have been the default outcome then. Somebody clearly knew what they were doing. And this isn't the only surviving sign of ancient prehistoric surgery. There's trepanation, the practice of drilling or slowly scraping a hole straight into a living person's skull. Sounds insane. Sounds fatal. Except scientists found dozens of trepanned skulls across Europe, Asia and South America. A shocking number of them show healed bone around the hole, meaning the patient lived, sometimes for years. Sometimes with multiple holes drilled at different points in the same skull. Nobody knows exactly why they did it. Maybe to relieve pressure from a serious head injury. Maybe for spiritual reasons entirely. Maybe honestly, both at once. But prehistoric surgery was real, it happened repeatedly, and survival rates were much higher than anything you'd predict. Our ancestors were not fumbling around in the dark, they were, in their own quiet way, practicing real medicine. And the painkillers they were using? You'd actually recognize some of them today. Willow bark, for one classic example. Chew it, boil it, or make a warm tea from it. The bark contains a compound called salicin. Your body converts that salicin into salicylic acid, which is essentially the active compound found in modern aspirin. Ancient humans across multiple separate continents figured this out completely independently. Break your arm, chew some willow bark. The pain drops. Not gone entirely, but manageable enough. That's not folklore. That's real, working, useful pharmacology. All of it discovered thousands of years before chemistry even existed as a formal scientific discipline anywhere on Earth. There's more. Opium poppy was cultivated in the Mediterranean at least 6,000 years ago, probably even earlier. Henbane, mandrake, cannabis, various nightshades, all showing up in ancient burial sites, on grinding stones, in pottery residues. Some plants knock you unconscious, some dull pain for hours, some kill you if the dose is wrong. Ancient humans learned the difference the hard way, by watching, remembering, passing knowledge from one generation to the next. Here's a detail that still blows me away. Scientists found dental plaque on a Neanderthal skeleton in Spain. Inside that hardened plaque, they identified traces of poplar, which contains salicylic acid, the same painkiller as willow bark. That Neanderthal had a dental abscess. He was self-medicating with tree bark. 50,000 years ago, before writing. Before farming, before permanent settlements, someone was chewing bark to make the pain in their mouth stop. Self-awareness of the body's needs is much older than we assume. Most fractures healed without any doctor at all. Here's what happens with a broken bone. Set it straight, keep it still, avoid infection. The body heals itself. Bone tissue is one of the few things in the human body that regenerates completely on its own. New bone grows across the break, forming a lump, a callus, that slowly reshapes into normal bone over months. You don't need a specialist, you just need time, patience, and a body that still remembers how to heal. And that's where the real ancient survival trait shows up. Time. Healing takes 6 to 8 weeks minimum. for a clean fracture in a healthy young adult. During those weeks with a leg injury, you can't hunt, you can't gather, you can't outrun anything that wants to eat you. You are, in evolutionary terms, a liability, which means someone else has to feed you, someone brings you water, someone keeps the fire from going out, someone protects you at night. In a small band of 20 or 30 people, that's a seriously heavy cost. Every calorie given to the injured is a calorie not going to a hunter, a child, or pregnant mother. And yet, the group did it, over and over, across every ancient human population we've ever excavated carefully. That is not a small thing. That is, arguably, the single trait that actually made our species human. Not tools, not fire, not even language, but the willingness to spend resources on someone who may never repay. Self-awareness of mutual dependence, the recognition that today it's him, but tomorrow it might very well be you. Care, in other words, is the real survival technology. It's the actual reason our species is still here. You can see it in group behavior patterns preserved in ancient camps. Bones of the injured found near hearths, near sleeping areas, close to the center of the group's living space, not pushed to the edges, not abandoned, kept close. Kept warm, fed with softened food when they couldn't chew properly. Some were buried carefully afterward, sometimes with grave goods, sometimes with signs of ceremony. But bones also record the moments when care failed, because it wasn't always kind. Not every ancient group was a Hallmark card. Some skeletons tell darker stories too. Bones healed badly, twisted and shortened, giving the person a lifelong limp. Others show signs of deep infection. Infection spread through the whole body, slow and painful, until it killed them. Fractures were survivable, infections often weren't. In a world without antibiotics, a splinter of bone poking through skin was very often a death sentence. And some individuals' remains suggest something worse: abandonment. Skeletons found alone, far from the main group's areas, injuries showing no signs of care. Nutritional stress markers indicate they were starving badly before they finally died. Not every band could afford compassion. Sometimes the choice was keep this person alive or let children eat. Ancient humans faced decisions we, in our supermarket and hospital world, can barely imagine. There's also evidence of violence: bones with cut marks, bones with skull fractures that clearly came from another human's weapon thousands of years ago. Prehistoric life could be tender and brutal, sometimes within the same community. Survival was never truly guaranteed. Care was a choice, not a default. That makes the cases where care happened even more meaningful. Someone actively decided to spend energy saving another person when the easier path was to let them go. So what does all this actually mean for us today? Turns out our story doesn't end here. Take a step back. Every element of modern bone medicine existed in some prehistoric form long ago. The splint, the immobilization, the pain management, the community support during recovery, all of it ancient. We didn't invent these things, we refined them, put them in hospitals, and gave them Latin names. We covered them with insurance policies. But the underlying instincts driving all this care are genuinely ancient. Your body still heals the prehistoric way. Break your arm tomorrow, and the biochemistry hasn't changed at all. It's identical to the same biochemistry that knit Shanidar once shattered arm together 40,000 years ago. The chemical cascade of inflammation, callus formation, remodeling, none of that has changed for our species. What changed is we stopped dying of infections and complications around the injury rather than from it. And the plant compounds are still with us today. Aspirin, morphine, atropine, scopolamine, all ancient discoveries. They trace directly back to willow, poppy, mandrake, and henbane. The pharmaceutical industry didn't discover most of these molecules. It isolated them, standardized them, and put them in pills. Ancient humans actually found them all first. Through generations of careful, dangerous experimentation, they mapped which plants healed and which ones quietly killed you. Every pain relief you take today is essentially a written message from someone living thousands of years ago. Not written in words, but in behavior. The quiet ancestral instruction that this particular plant helps. And the compassion, the caregiving, the willingness to feed the injured hunter, that's ancient technology too. It's not soft, it's not sentimental, it's one of the hardest earned survival strategies in our entire toolkit, refined over hundreds of thousands of years of trial, loss, and choice. You inherited the survivor's genes, which means, statistically speaking, you also inherited the genes of the ones who cared for those survivors. Both traits, the resilience and the compassion, are woven together permanently inside you right now. That's the quiet punchline of every ancient healed bone. Somebody, at some point, decided this person was worth keeping. That decision, repeated millions of times across the ages, is a large part of why humans are still here. Not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we stayed with each other when things went wrong. One last question before you go. If ancient humans handled broken bones with splints, painkillers, surgery and support, what do you think they did during childbirth? That's an even higher stakes moment. No hospitals, no epidurals, no obstetricians. And yet, here we all are. Someone figured it out. Want that story? Subscribe. It's next. More about ancient bodies, ancient minds, and how our ancestors solved problems